Hey guys, you know who I am, Jeremy from School of Wok. It's Saturday Specials and this series is all about the bao. This week's Saturday Special, fermented tofu pork belly. My dad's absolute favourite to cook, but I'm putting it in my buns. So, a lot of people ask sort of what braising is. What's the difference between braising and boiling? Well, it's not quite the same. You kind of want to fry when you're braising. It's the process of frying before then boiling into liquid that makes the absolute difference. So I've got my pork belly here with skin on, and I'm going to fry this skin side down in the saucepan. So you need enough oil to give it a nice sort of golden brown crisp. Whilst that's then frying, I'll make my sauce. The sauce then also needs to be fried into the meat and caramelized around the meat before you add any liquid. So skin side down, straight into that hot oil. You do want this to crisp up, so it's going to take about sort of 3 to 4 minutes of cooking through on a medium to high heat. And whilst that's going, I'm going to make up my sauce. And it all starts with this fermented red tofu. You can get this in Chinese supermarkets. Now if you can't find it, what it's there for is to create this almost like silkiness in the sauce without using any sort of thickening agents. So if you want to swap it out and still get that silkiness with a depth of flavour, there's a little trick. You could use hard-boiled egg yolks, and you'll see what I mean by that. So I'm going to take this fermented red tofu and I'm going to press into it to make a nice paste. You want it to be nice and smooth, but you can see it's got that almost egg yolky texture to it. So now this paste forms the base of my sauce. The rest is very, very savoury ingredients with a little bit of sweet from some sugar. So my sugar is going in. I've got some dark soya sauce here, which will really deepen the colour and give it that caramelized texture. So that's going to work well with the sugar. Some Qingqiang black vinegar, not too much. It's got that really nice sort of sweet, sour, savoury taste to it. So I've got a couple of teaspoons of Qingqiang black vinegar to work with that sugar. So we've got a slight sweet, sour, good deep savoury from the dark soy sauce and the fermented tofu. The last bit here, some sesame oil. Mix that in together, and my garlic's going to fry through just before I add the sauce. Get that well sort of mixed in. My sauce is ready to caramelize around the pork. Ooh, yeah. So you can see, after about 5 minutes, you've got a really nice, almost crisp skin. I'm going to turn that around. And what that does is, we're not going for a crispy skin pork here, but the skin would have broken down slightly, so when the sauce braises around that skin, it just sort of falls apart, and it keeps a slight bit of its texture. And that makes a massive difference, and that's why braising is different to boiling. The garlic goes in now. 2 to 3 cloves of garlic's enough. Give that a stir around. And the sauce, now this is really important. I'm going to pour this sauce in whilst it's still on that sort of medium to high heat. I want it to bubble up straight away. And that will caramelize around the meat immediately. 3, 2, 1. Woo. So you can see that immediate sort of bubbling up of the sauce, that vigorous boil. What's important now is that we just lift that pork off the base, allow that pork to wrap around the sauce nicely. So I've just turned that pork around. It's going to take about, I'm just going to bring the heat down now to sort of medium heat. And I want that sauce to caramelize around the pork for the next sort of 3 to 4 minutes. Baste that nicely, make sure it's well covered. And that stickiness is being created at the beginning. I then pour water into it to bubble away, and then when it reduces, it will stick even more around the pork. So my sauce has really caramelized up around the pork. I've kind of just soaked up as much of it as possible around the meat, but I don't want the sauce to catch and burn. So it's time to add my water. So just pour the water in. So you want to bring that to a boil, cover it with a lid, and then right down to a simmering temperature. Let that cook for a minimum of 1.5 hours. So my pork belly has been braising away slowly, softening up. The sauce isn't quite sort of evaporated enough yet, but what I want to do at this point is start to slice sort of good size chunks into the pork, and I'm going to put it back into the sauce to take in all that flavour whilst it caramelizes over the next half hour or so. So just go carefully back into the sauce and keep that on the boil. So I've got my dough already made and kneaded and rested. If you don't know how to make it, you can follow the first video in this series, or you can make it from scratch from one of our other videos on the School Wok channel. So I've rolled out a sort of a cylinder of dough, and I'm going to split that in 3, so just sort of pull and twist it out. And then I want nice smooth balls of dough. So the way to do that is what we like to call at the school pinchy pinchy, twisty twisty, and that is a hole punch into the dough and then pinch and twist it back together, and that creates a nice round piece of dough. So you want to do that with each piece of dough first. Once you've made your round balls of dough, then you should just dust the surface with some flour, and this is very simple. I'm going to push into that dough and then roll it into a nice oval shape. This is a classic Hirata bun shape here. This is go really nicely as a sort of steamed sandwich bread for my slow braised pork belly. So I've got my oval shapes of bao, a little drizzle of oil over the top of each one, spread that across the top, and then fold that over. And once you've got your Angelina Jolie or bao, you're in a good place. So you can just get your bao ready. They're going to go into the steam basket and then straight on to full steam, 8 minutes. So that sauce has reduced down really nicely now. Got that really silky finish to it. The skin is nice and soft. Each piece is very succulent. Get a good glaze of that fermented tofu sauce into there. Any sort of salad over the top, so I've got some nice finely sliced cucumber just to finish that off. If you wanted some spring onion, you could as well, it's up to you. So, my fermented tofu slow braised pork belly bao. Yes. One of our staff bumped into a dog called Bao the Chow the other day. I feel like Chow the Bao. No, that didn't work. But I'm just going to taste this and tell you how good it is, guys. Not something that I would necessarily eat all the time if I'm trying to be healthy, that pork belly, but it really works. What I like about this is that it's not too sweet. The fermented tofu in there, it's more of a savoury filling. You know, it's still got a glaze, but that comes from that silkiness from the tofu. If you like this type of recipe, and you like learning about more unique flavours, don't forget to subscribe to our channel.